Island Song. Take an island, maybe the richest and most diverse place on earth. Take a place called Norbrook, but then it was just the land. Here, in the shade of a great ceiba tree, hands scoop up the earth. Hands press, mix the two clays, add water from the spring, smooth into a perfect curve. Fingers mark designs on the clay, baked hot in the stone oven to make a dish. Young eyes regard the dish with pride. This is the best she has made so far, although she will go on to make better still. The dish is put into use at once, boils leaves, bakes shellfish, boils cassava. Windy seasons, rainy seasons come and go. The sun is like an elixir. Fruits ripen and drop and come again. Coney and turtle are plentiful. Hummingbirds dart between the green leaves. Our potter lives peacefully. The sun shines. Her family grow. She becomes old and she dies. And still, the dish heats water, cooks and serves. When it chips, the biggest part is still used. It breaks again, and the fragments are discarded with the million shells. Years do not mean much to this broken dish, buried by shells along with a few bones. Beetles, like jewels, burrow around and about. Snails crawl. Gulls circle above, and their droppings land nearby. The dust, pollen, earth, sand, fronds, roots of the daisy, roots of the sea grape entangle the broken dish. Children of many generations live nearby. Let's call them the grandchildren. They work and play, celebrate and mourn, and laugh. Beside them, the dish slowly sinks a little more and becomes part of the richness of the land. Then one day, strangers came. There was violence, shouts, cries, a war like no other, and the grandchildren fled to the hills. And when the war ended, the grandchildren, those still remaining, lived on the hills where trees made the air clean and fresh. Strange voices in new languages were heard to say, "This place, this island, surely this is God's own paradise." And the broken dish still lay secretly in the land with its friends, the shells. Rats came from the ships, bringing new smells and new sounds. Horses came from the ships, and dogs. Cats for the rats. New plants grew in the fertile land. Coffee, banana, sugar. Our dish was buried in soft layers of dust, shell, droppings, wrapped with roots and stems. And things around were louder and busier. Up in the hills, more grandchildren were born and died because this land was theirs and always will be. More ships arrived. More strangers came. They brought gunpowder. There was cannon fire, bayonet and sword. More voices wondered at the beauty, variety and fertility of this extraordinary island, a heaven on earth. More people were brought, and more people were bought. They came with seeds in their pockets. Precious hands worked the land, which beds our broken dish, harrow and salt it. Sticks of sugar, bulbs of sugar, were forced up again and again, season after season. The wealth was grown, loaded onto ships and sent away to other places. New voices, a clamour of voices could be heard, but they did not call the island a paradise. Fire swept through once a season, blackening the grasses, shells and dust and breath, blackening the dish. Sugar and sugar, season after season, until the soil was exhausted and the sugar itself grew thin. Ferns and reeds were pulled up to make room for more sugar. Blood was shed and soaked into the earth. Flowers and fruits pushed through at every corner, in every crack and crevice, still. Even so. And still, quietly, the broken dish slept among the shells and stems. Money sailed away on the tide. Do you know where it went? Much of it came here to the UK. And now it's time to tell you about Lady Edith Blake. In 1833, the law in the UK changed. Slave owners in the UK were forced to give up their slaves. In return, they were paid what would be in today's money around £2 billion. That blood money made many people richer, including an Englishman named Ralph Burnell. It made his fortune. Ralph Burnell's granddaughter, Edith, was born in 1845 in the chill and rain of Ireland. She was independent, energetic, delightful and clever. She loved adventures and, as she grew older, she travelled, wrote and drew. She married for love, a lowly policeman named Henry Blake. Her family were so angry that they disinherited her, cutting her off from that family fortune. Henry Blake, her husband, went into the colonial service. He and Edith, the two lovebirds, travelled around the British Empire, having adventures, rebuilding that lost fortune. The Blakes and their children sailed to the Bahamas, Newfoundland, and then in 1888 they came to the island that was now called Jamaica. Edith Blake, too, was delighted and fascinated by the wonder, the people, the richness of Jamaica. She explored the beaches and plantations. She painted the flowers which still blossomed full and bright despite everything. She painted butterflies of colours richer than any gem. These jewels and many more. She hunted through the island for riches of all kinds to save and cherish. And then it happened. Children were playing. Soft hand touched the crowd of shells. A child's finger worked between the dust and roots and pulled a piece of our broken dish into the daylight again. Maybe a child's voice said, "Look, we found treasure." The children took the dish to an English school teacher called Amy Johnson. "Well done, children. This is very old indeed. Give it to me. There's an important lady here who knows about such things. We're so lucky to have her here. The governor's wife. Her name is Lady Blake. I'll show her." Imagine Edith Blake's blue eyes. They lit up when they saw the broken dish. "You have found something very special here, very old, very telling. Is there any more? I'd be much obliged if you'd take me to see for myself." Soon after, she went to that ancient place for herself. She took tender care of the shells and the dish and the other things that she found. She studied them, imagined, guessed, and studied some more. In 1890, she published a celebrated article for the Victoria Quarterly called The Norbrook Kitchen Midden. Lady Blake became known for promoting anthropology in Jamaica, organising exhibitions, giving talks and writing articles. But all good things must end, And soon enough, Lord and Lady Blake were called to leave this colonial paradise for another in Hong Kong. The dish was carefully wrapped and placed in a wooden box with a label. It was taken away across the sea, like so much other treasure. In 1907, Henry and Edith Blake ended their travels and settled back home in County Cork. 1916 was a time of unrest in Ireland and in the world, and the Blakes decided to be safe, to sell off some of their treasure, to swap it for hard cash. There were letters, bids, offers, counter-offers. This was a valuable, unique collection of artefacts, after all. The sum was agreed and the collection was sold for a good price to the Museum of the American Indian. The Blakes' fortune was secure. Our dish was on the move again, among the shells, carved wood, stone tools, to another place, another collection, this time in America. Although Edith Blake often thought of the flowers, the buildings, the people of Jamaica, I think it's safe to say that she never thought much about that particular piece of dish again. I don't think anyone really gave that particular piece much thought until last year. I met Dr. Amara Thornton and we started to talk about the possibility of me telling a story about Edith Blake, the adventurer, the artist, the archaeologist, the energetic, charismatic governor's wife. We came to talking about her finds, although she didn't exactly find them herself. She documented and collected them. She took them away from Jamaica. Many of her treasures have not been digitised, but the dish has. There's a photograph on the Smithsonian website. It's recorded as sold to the museum by the Blakes and probably found by Edith. They have dated it to somewhere between 500 AD and 1500 AD. Give or take 1,000 years. We looked at it for a few minutes and then closed the tab. And meanwhile, in the island of Jamaica, new plants continue to grow, new animals run, new flowers and fruits come. The grandchildren pick them and eat them in the golden sun.